We are two NPCs in the world of animation and gaming talking about the chaos of the industry. Whether you're here for the pixels, the drama, or just along for the ride, welcome to Pixelated 8. Let's press start.
Hello,
Hello.
welcome. Hello, how are you?
Welcome. Yeah. How have you been? How's your week?
It was good. Nothing too much. Just gardening stuff, washing my car, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
adulting.
It's gotten warmer.
Yeah.
It's gotten warmer, which is nice.
Yes. Yes, it is nice, but it's too hot.
already already and it's like
Yeah,
can I turn on my AC right now, and it's just like, are you crazy?
exactly. And isn't
Yeah.
that the classic problem of Canada where
Yeah.
you end up staying home because it's like either it's too cold or it's too hot?
Yeah, it's like April. Is it snowing or is it like just really sweating?
Yeah, yeah. And we were supposed to
Yeah.
go for hikes, but
Yeah.
now it's too hot.
Well, I mean, it is spring,
Mm-hmm.
and actually it's not too wet either.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember the year we actually went to hiking early and it was actually like damp,
Yeah,
and
it's true.
we were surrounded by mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. We
I
should,
felt like I was
yeah,
gonna be devoured in that forest.
it's true. We should
Yeah.
definitely see if we can do some hikes. Maybe
Yeah.
next weekend. We'll plan something out.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this kind of relates to a topic, about
Mm.
adulting and traveling. Well, we didn't say traveling yet, but it relates to moving to a new studio.
Mm.
Whether you're moving to a new studio within Canada or
Mm.
within another country or to another country, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of small things that make those decisions, can make those decisions very difficult and can be very, cumbersome, So, we can talk about our experiences.
Well, yeah, actually, no, it's more like hiking kind of brings up Vancouver,
Yes, exactly.
which
I was
is,
thinking, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And
Which brings up, yes, the
yes,
studios.
that was the big one. Yeah, that was a big move we did. And I've talked about it before. I won't talk about it. This podcast was my first time going to
Mm.
Vancouver,
Oh,
right?
yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, you went back.
I
Yeah.
went back, and that was like a nightmare scenario because that was pre Uber, Google Maps. I think Google Maps just came out, so trying to find a place to live, it was such a bad, like, I didn't even book a hotel or motel for the week. I just lugged around my suitcase looking for a place on the day I landed.
Yeah. That's like
It's
ultimate non-prepared.
ultimate non, one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Like, I should have
Yeah.
booked a hotel for a couple of nights. Nope. I just went there, walked around, and then basically the second last place where I'm like, I just got tired. I'm like, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like
Yeah.
just having to make yourself try to find a place on like the first day.
Oh, definitely.
It's almost
Yeah.
impossible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are better studios now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, that was your first job, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably like you're just moving there yourself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like paid for by the studio or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And school doesn't teach you any of that stuff. University, no one teaches you how to get a job in another province, in another country, and what to do, what you need to look out for.
I think
You
it
know?
also depends on like, I guess, the type of studio. Like
Hmm.
if they're actually, if you're moving there
Yeah,
to find opportunities there, or if the studio is providing you like with all the travel fees and like setting you up
yeah.
for that, right? Because even when I was back in engineering, there were people who went to the US for co-op opportunities, and it was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was paid for. They don't have to pay out of their pocket to go to the US.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like I find that kind of thing a lot less happening in the animation
Oh, definitely.
world.
Our
Yeah,
our
animation gaming.
industry,
Yeah.
some studios
Mm.
are cheap, are horrible
Yes.
and cheap.
Yeah.
I'll say it.
No, especially if you are like
Yeah.
in a starting position, like your
Yes.
junior position, they won't really pay for you to move, basically.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And this is where I really appreciate when bigger studios are, or even healthy studios, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
make the effort of helping you move, even if
Yeah.
they don't pay all of it. Maybe they'll help you find a place. This goes into, like, I was thinking about it, like with our move to Vancouver. I think one of the biggest things was our they correct me, they paid for like 1 month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
did put us up in a hotel for 1 month so that we had time to look for a place
Yeah.
to live. There was no like other allowances. It was just for that one place, which is good.
Yes.
Which is good.
Yeah. And I was pretty lucky to be able to find a place within the first week.
Yeah.
But it was also unconventional because I know when I hear about other people trying to
Hmm.
find an apartment over there,
Yeah.
everyone was basically you submit your application and you're just kind of like trying to bid it basically.
Oh yeah. It was.
I was lucky
Yeah.
enough because at the time my mom was actually she was helping me and looking through some of the Chinese newspapers
Hmm.
where they actually had like people renting out their places and they posted like on the newspaper. And so we went that trip, like we went for that route.
Yeah. Yeah. Connections.
And
Nice.
yeah, pretty much, but like not really
Yeah.
connections,
Hmm.
but like just that type of renting. So I didn't
Yeah.
have to go through your whole like process, the application process,
Yeah.
and because I know you had to do like some of the other things, right? Like your
Well,
proof of income and all that other
yes.
stuff.
I got
Yeah.
lucky with my first place because I took
Mm-hmm.
over person who was already who had basically a coworker who had moved to another studio within the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to take over their kind of their lease,
Yeah.
and that helped him out
Mm-hmm.
because and it helped me out. So it kind of worked out for both of us. But
Yeah.
then eventually I wanted to leave that place. It was just a little far. I wanted a little closer to the studio.
Yeah.
And so you're 100% right. I had to submit an application. It was like a 2 month wait. I had to
Mm.
give them my a letter from work saying how much I make, that yes,
Mm.
I am employed. I don't know if I didn't have to do like a police check or anything,
Yeah.
but
Some places do need it,
they
right?
do need it. But in this case, they were just interested in, I believe that I was employed and I can afford the rent. That was the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, knock on wood, we were fairly well, like it was a good studio, healthy studio, so we were fairly well paid. And that
Mm-hmm.
actually made a big difference because we lived downtown,
Yeah.
right?
If the studio wasn't at downtown, it would
Mm-hmm.
have been a harder decision for me to say to move there just because of the
Yeah.
inconvenience.
Yeah.
Because I think with moving, you also think about transportation, right? And if like
Yes.
everything is far, then you have to consider a car,
Absolutely. Yep.
which is like additional things, right? And
Yep.
but if you're just moving there for like temporary work, like do you want to buy a car?
Yeah.
Or like if
Mm-hmm.
you rent one, then that's also like other fees, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Actually,
a lot to think about.
that's a good point. Like just thinking about the calculations. For example, if we wanted a cheaper rent in Vancouver,
Mm,
because I did look, I was looking a little outside, closer to the airport area. You could get like I think it was like $200, $300 cheaper, right?
mm,
But then you
yeah,
were looking at a daily commute of an extra total of $10,
yeah.
right, back and forth, which isn't bad. Honestly, it's not that bad at all. But
Well,
I
to me,
think,
it's the
yeah,
time though. Like
the time,
I
yes,
personally,
yeah,
for me, it's like I'd rather pay more and live closer
yeah,
rather than
absolutely,
having to spend the time to commute. It's just
yeah.
commute is just so horrible.
And that was, I think it was 40 minutes away to get even that
Yeah.
$200 off, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted really low rent, you could go even further, or even like stay in like a basement, right?
Mm,
Because that was
yeah.
my first time. I stayed in a basement, and it was
Right.
dirt cheap. It
Yeah.
was like $800, $900 a month, I think.
That's
It was
crazy.
it was disgusting cheap, but it was an unfinished basement, so that tells you
Yeah.
everything.
I've actually seen some
Yeah.
of those when I
Hmm.
was back in university.
Yeah.
There in that area, we're just trying to rent places
Mm.
closer to the university, and I've seen all kinds of crazy basements. It's
Yeah.
like there was one I remember very clearly going in. and
Yeah.
it looked like a cave. It's literally a cave.
Yeah.
And you can't like, because some of my friends are tall and
Yeah.
like they can't even stand straight basically
Oh,
without hitting
wow.
their head.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
literally a cave. And then
Yeah.
when I came out, I'm just like, no, I don't care. No, this is not like, let's not even consider this.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think for me or for us, it's like there's a difference between probably because I'm a girl and I would prefer to live safer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know about basements. Maybe if like, I guess it depends on the owner or if there's like someone living above how they are, but like obviously preferably I'll live in like apartment and like by myself in a unit probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, my basement story the first time in Vancouver is literally a horror story. I mean, the guy not only took my deposit and never gave it back to me,
Oh wow.
and because it was an unfinished basement, technically it was illegal. Like I was too young or didn't have enough money for lawyers or anything, but I should have sued him. Like I should have just taken him to court. But I was so disgusting and done with that place. I just wanted out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was I'm trying to remember, maybe $200 deposit or even $100, something like that. And I was like, you know what? Even though I was not making any money then, all my paycheck was going to just living. And I was like, okay. I said I'm gonna call the police, and he just stood there. So I call him.
Wow.
And I was
He's
like,
not scared
wow. Oh, he was not
at all.
scared. He's done this many
Yeah.
times, I think, and he knows how to get out of it.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
it was quite disgusting, actually. And I think because of that, I don't think I'll ever stay in a basement with the person who owns a place upstairs, because there's just too much control, power trip, you know?
Yeah, it is because you're both at the same place, you know, in the same building, right?
Exactly.
And you don't know sometimes if they're too loud, then can you complain? Or
Exactly.
yeah, you don't know. It's just like I'd rather not be always like under the eyes of like whoever you're renting from.
I have an East Asian background myself, and so I know the cooking and the smells is delicious, but I don't like it on my clothes.
Yes, I agree.
These guys were cooking so much that I could smell it in the basement. I'm like, how is that possible? Like they weren't ventilating their own whatever, and it was winterish.
Yeah,
I had no choice but to close all the vents in the basement just so I don't get that smell. And it was freezing. So I had to buy a little heater too. Again, worst case scenario in every aspect. So I think ever since then, what we're talking about, it was always about like calculating exactly. Distance was an important one, right? Yeah. Because I again, like you said, I don't want to be too far. Trains not working. This is not working. Snowstorm. Like Vancouver, a little bit of snow. Oh my God, everything shuts down.
Well, it's not even like too bad. It's always rainy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? One of the bigger things that nobody ever thought about, and when I was actually looking for places there, and usually the owners would tell me, oh yeah, you know, because it doesn't get too hot in Vancouver, so none of the buildings have AC.
I know, that's
I'm
crazy.
just like, really?
I was like, what?
But then when we actually lived there, it was like, that's totally not the case. It gets so hot.
It gets so hot.
And especially there's this weird thing about their apartments all designed to have like the huge windows, like from the top to the bottom. And during the afternoon, if you're facing in a bad direction, it's like you're literally baking the whole day. Your whole apartment's baking the whole day.
Actually, that was one of the reasons I left the other place, because it was facing, I'm trying to remember, I think it was west. And it was for that half day. Oh my God, it was like a sauna. I literally went to the movie theater, every time in the afternoon, just so I can get away from the sun. So I can have some nice AC.
Oh man.
I even bought an AC unit. It helped.
Yeah.
But it didn't help when the sun was shining right in the window.
Yeah, no, I bought an AC unit myself as well, the portable ones. And the funny thing was the way their windows are designed too. The AC stuff doesn't actually fit properly because they designed it for like the vertical windows, but then like ours were like opening horizontally, which is like another issue.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I always have my curtains closed just because I don't want the sunlight in my house, which is
Yeah.
like crazy.
I got lucky because I think my second place had a balcony,
Mm.
and so I was able to put a nice vertical whatever thing was and
Vertical
have the
panel.
AC set up
Yeah.
there. But I did have to like it was very tall, so I had to like add an extra piece of plastic and epoxy it together and all. It's like
Right.
oh my god, but it was
Yeah.
worth it. It was worth it, honestly.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, our friend
yeah.
who actually got into the newer building,
Mm.
they have like central AC, but
Yes.
then she was even saying even then they only turn it on after like a certain temperature.
Oh yeah, and also
So
like
she doesn't get to control it herself.
yeah, and it was really dirty because like the dirty tactics these buildings play.
Yeah.
So this is very important too, where
Mm.
I think, unfortunately, our friend like she paid the same rent as us, but
Mm.
she ended up with a studio
Yes, like
Yeah.
really tiny place.
because it was a brand new building, and they,
Yeah.
you know, they knew people wanted it, so they were like, whatever. I mean, now the condo market in general, I think, is collapsing. So let's see what happens with rent prices. Actually,
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it went down or anything, but maybe it just doesn't keep on going up, and that's a good thing for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah. I think it only dropped like 5-10%, not that much. I think
Yeah.
you know what it hurts the most is like again we were a little bit more senior in our careers
Mm,
when we made this move.
mm.
But I'm just thinking about the students that we hired and we were working with. They unfortunately couldn't afford to go downtown.
Yeah,
know?
it's actually quite bad. Like in retrospect, if I
Hmm.
was more junior in my job, I wouldn't have made the move without like the help of the studio.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
for
Yeah.
example, if there's more opportunities right now in
Hmm.
like Montreal,
Yeah.
and you're a junior, like would you move there just for the opportunities?
It'd be a
It's
really
hard to
difficult
say.
choice actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because because this goes back to the calculations, right? You have to calculate your travel expenses, that's one thing.
Yeah.
From and then the area, you have to check the area. Like you
Yeah.
have to like I usually do like I think you can on Google you can check what the police like check out like what the crime rates are
Yeah.
this kind of thing within that area.
Mm.
And then once you check all that, again going back to the price thing, one thing you for the price you have to take into consideration, okay, this is how much you're going to get paid. You have to also take out your taxes, right?
Mm.
Then you have to figure out, okay, how much is the studio going to take out for your insurance, for example, right? There's a small chunk that comes out of your insurance. Now, what you're
Yes.
left with is now you have to see how much rent is
Yeah,
that
the
amount,
rent is the
right?
big one. Yeah.
So, in a lot of cases, if you're a junior, it could be 70% of your remaining pay or even 80% of your remaining pay goes to rent.
Yeah.
Now you have to decide the last 20 or 30%, is that enough for food?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have to think about, okay, food, utilities, right?
Yeah.
Hot water, heating, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And then,
yeah.
internet. Who doesn't get
Internet,
internet
exactly,
nowadays, right?
exactly. And I
Yeah.
think for us, we actually did a rough estimate because luckily, again, our pay was good enough that we understood. Like, but here's the thing: we were comfortable with the idea that half our pay was going to rent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
And the other half we will actually no. I think we still had not half. It was more closer to 1/3, I believe. Actually, sorry, 1/3 was going to rent, right?
At the time,
Yeah.
the rent wasn't that high either.
It wasn't that
Like,
high.
we were at the
yeah,
area where at the time where
yeah.
the rent was not that high.
Yeah, I was just thinking of our colleague that we were talking about. I think hers was half.
Yeah.
Her because it was because it had jumped. Yeah, now I'm remembering. It had jumped almost 30% since we started in Vancouver, and then by the time we left. So, 2020. 2015 to 2020.
Mm.
Between that timeline, it had jumped quite a lot.
Yep.
And I think we got lucky, I think, in that aspect. Even I was looking at one point, I was looking at purchasing something, and there was a few places downtown was going for like around listing was 800, so you knew it was sell for like $1 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's too much. That's too much. But in retrospect, now they're selling for 1.5, 1.8.
Yeah.
Right?
We
I'm like,
actually
damn
did
it.
have a few
Yeah.
coworkers and friends
Mm-hmm.
who bought places instead of
Yes.
renting.
Yeah.
And even after they left that area, they left Vancouver,
Yeah.
they end up still just renting it out.
Yeah.
I guess if you do have the money for it, it might be good investment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think because Vancouver, this is the one thing that no one tells you about Vancouver. It's so small.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tiny little place and everybody wants to live there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone
So,
everyone wants to
mhm.
be in downtown, basically.
Yeah.
That area.
There was a brief moment I was looking at for going to the US.
Mm.
And that one was an interesting scenario. Like that jump.
Yeah, that would be pretty. I mean, a different country is like it does happen a lot.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of people in their jobs
Yes.
between the two places. But
Mhm.
I mean, I guess one thing is like your finances and all that stuff is.
Absolutely. I think two things, again, don't quote me on this. This is, I did a little bit of research back then. I just wasn't comfortable with the amount I was going to get paid, essentially.
Mm,
Because if the pay is not enough for you to be able to pay in US dollars, basically,
Yeah.
right? So you need to make sure that the pay is equal to like a US dollar. And then again, you have to do the same calculations, figure out whether you're going to buy a car potentially.
mm,
Because if you look at LA, for example, it's just flat. You need a car. You cannot survive without a car there.
mhm.
So that you got to figure out car driving. You got to figure out location. Again, same idea. Where's the best place to live, and rent and all that stuff. But there's an extra caveat to that.
Mhm.
If you have a property in Canada, if you have stocks or other kind of financial stuff in Canada, you have to. In a lot of cases, you have to sell most of that stuff so you don't get double taxed or hit with extra taxes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a property, you don't want to sell that, so you're definitely going to get hit with those taxes because that's income, right? But stocks wise, if you end up with stocks and you're making money through dividends or this and that, you're going to get double taxed. So you got to really make an assessment exactly how you want to do it, whether it's worth it financially. And in a lot of cases, I know a few family friends, it's worth it, you know?
I think
yeah.
it also depends on if you're looking to do this as long term or short term.
Yes.
Like for example, animation studio wise,
Yeah.
you're in animation or film. Like sure, if you get into like an animated film, it could take like 3 years, up to 5 years. But like I would say even 5 years is more like if you're there from pre-production all the way to the end, right?
Exactly.
But you rarely ever like not that many people are just there from pre-production.
Exactly.
Like you're more looking closer to like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Which is like a lot to do if you're deciding to, hey, I'm just gonna go there for this one thing for 2 to 3 years and then come back.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of work to do just for that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas like say in the gaming industry, one game could be like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Then it might be okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very valid point because even let's say you as a junior and you get a job there, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's definitely worth it. Again, you have to calculate the price point. And then when you're negotiating, you want to put those price points in there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where the key is. Don't undersell yourself. Make sure, and don't oversell yourself either. It's a very fine line.
Yeah.
You're right. And so when you're negotiating, be like, well, you know, because of this factor, I need to be paid 100K, let's say. Right? And when you make that assessment, you want to make sure all your checks and balances are done. You know, your calculations are done. Because if you're if you are under what you need to spend, or for just living, you could say, then you're going to end up resenting getting the low pay, right?
Yeah. But that's what I also think most studios don't really hire non-local for juniors. That's also a reason.
Yeah.
Like because they know that like whatever they're affording to pay the juniors, or
Yeah.
whatever pay they want to pay the juniors is like just that much. So if you're
Hmm.
not local, if you're not already living there, then it's like you won't even be able to basically keep yourself
Yeah.
alive, basically.
It's
Yeah.
true. Exactly. Exactly. And now with all the expenses, like things have skyrocketed in grocery prices, everything. I mean, people are talking about shelves being empty because of the trade wars that are going on,
Yeah.
right? So you gotta really do the calculation
Yeah.
and get it right.
I think
Yeah.
one thing to consider is
Hmm.
also like if you're moving to a place, are
Yeah.
there other opportunities rather than just that one studio? I think
That's a
that's also,
very, very important
yeah.
point, actually. Good
You
call.
want to see
Yeah.
where else you can actually move
Hmm.
to if like something goes wrong, or like if your contract just ends and they're not rehiring you, then you
Yeah.
need to look for something else, right? And the best thing would be if you already moved there
Hmm.
to find something that's also in that area.
Yeah, actually, that's a very valid point because I think Vancouver, in my opinion, is very healthy for the industry.
Mm,
I find there's a lot of good studios there, small, big, medium, you name it,
yeah.
and the opportunities are great.
Hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you're gonna get the classic cases of like abusive relationships, as we like to call them, with studios, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you have options, which is
Mm,
kind of nice. Now, don't get me wrong. Right now, our industry is going through two major issues.
mm,
One is a recovery period after all the strikes and
yeah.
COVID,
Yes.
and I think finally now production, VFX, animation is slowly getting back on its feet.
Hmm.
Video games is going through some kind of weird, um, like renaissance almost. You could, not renaissance. Sorry, that's a completely wrong one. It's more of like a restructuring. You could call it right,
Mm,
where not game. I think gaming has dropped.
mm,
People have slowly stopped gaming,
mm.
and I could be based on quality, right?
I
People are
think
looking for quality products.
more,
Yeah.
whereas you're saying that, it's
Mm-hmm.
more like people are actually playing the smaller games now too.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I think we heard from a friend. They're like, yeah, it just seems like people are more interested in the AA games, not the AAA, right?
That's true. Or the A.
Yeah.
A.
Um, the
Sorry.
like yeah. So
Yeah.
the triple
Mm,
A
yeah.
quality games, but like because I think also, time constraints and everything,
Yeah.
if you have a lot of those smaller games where you can play co-op, I think
Yeah.
people enjoy that now more as well. Like
Absolutely.
especially when you have like stuff like the Switch,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, where you can
Absolutely.
play with friends.
I mean, we used to religiously play with our friends Overwatch. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like every Wednesday night, every once on the weekend. OW, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening was either two things happen. Either the game gets boring,
Mm.
or they change the fundamentals of the game that you're like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I think so.
And with Overwatch, it was that. It was
Yeah, it
just,
was
yeah.
like just random, like the
Hmm.
updates that they did and
Yeah.
like the way that it changed Overwatch 2, it
Yep.
wasn't as enjoyable anymore. So
Yeah.
it just, yeah, I guess it's not a game you could actually play forever, you know?
And this kind of like goes into where if you look at you think about Overwatch, you think about movies and TV shows too. And sometimes when they make these kind of drastic decisions or make these changes
Mm-hmm.
that really affects how the viewer or the gamer sees it,
Mm.
it can destroy a franchise and or destroy the product or whatever. And
Yeah.
it takes a long time to rebuild that trust or rebuild the audience back.
Well, for one thing, I feel like personally, I like the superhero and all that movies,
Hmm.
but I also think that era of
Yeah.
movies for superheroes is done. Like it's done.
Yeah. I'm a super comic book fan. Like I've read
Yeah.
so many comic books, and even for me, I'm like, I'm all right.
Yeah, it's like, what's your opinion of it? I
Yeah.
just feel like that's too much. It's done.
Yeah.
We're done. We're good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. I mean, Endgame was amazing. Great ending. I mean, I don't think I've seen the latest Marvel stuff Even the DC
Me
stuff
neither. No,
hasn't
me neither.
piqued my interest. That's coming out soon. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing is really like piqued my interest about those. Really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. You know, it's two things I think that's happened. One is I am playing older games and I'm watching older movies and TV shows, and I'm
Mm.
finding that they're much more interesting. There's much more thought in the stories, in the
Mm.
characters, right?
Yeah.
In modern stuff, I'm finding it's more just how do we create clickbait? How do we
It's like
create.
a fast food
Yeah.
culture of
Yes. That's a
movies,
very
right?
good point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I see the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes it's,
Hmm.
yeah, particular movies, it's like, I'm good. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I guess going back to our original thought that we had for this podcast was, you know, and this kind of goes into like when you work on a project, I like to be invested in the project that I'm working on. Like
Yeah.
there's joy in there. Like, yes, I think this is going to be like an important kind of fun little project for the viewer or the gamer.
Mm.
I find if I'm working on something that's very commercial or like fast food, like you described it,
Yeah.
for me, there's two things out of those. Either I'm going to learn a lot from that,
Yeah.
where I can do development, I can really experiment with this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
great, amazing. But if I don't, and they just want me to sit there and press buttons, then to me, that's a mundane task or job.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that.
That's true.
So,
Actually,
yeah.
especially if you have to move for it, I think that's also
Exactly.
one of the criteria, right? It better
Yeah.
be an interesting project that you're doing all these things to go there
Exactly. And this is where I feel that moving to another studio,
Mm.
getting a feel of who the manager is, right?
Mm.
Who your manager is, who your lead or your supervisors are. And those 3 months of probation, in my opinion, there's two ways of taking that. One is obviously you're under probation,
Mm.
right? Right. But then
Yeah.
you're also assessing the studio and your surrounding people to see whether they're a good fit. They're a good fit for you, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
an employee that I hired, and they were working, and they didn't like the stuff they were doing, and I don't blame them. It was a fun atmosphere. I tried to make sure everybody was as creative as possible, but it was just not there. They wanted more cartoony, but we were doing more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it just wasn't a right fit. And they were able to get a job at a big studio, a DreamWorks kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? And I didn't want to, obviously, I'm not going to discourage that. To me, it's like, go for it,
Yeah.
right? But they were able to do that within the 3 months of the probation period.
Well,
And
now going
yeah.
back to the topic though,
Yeah.
it's possible if you live in the vicinity, right? But if that's a
Yes.
problem too, if you
Mhm.
move just for that job,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to be like, oh, let me also assess if I want to be in this studio for 3 months, right?
Absolutely.
Because like
Yeah.
rent is like usually, oh, you have to rent it for a year.
Yeah.
You sign a year.
Yep.
And
Sign a lease for a year.
it's just
yes.
you're kind of locked in, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why, yeah, it's important to also look out for other studios around the area, just so that you have a backup plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if I look at, and then, we can go into like our decision to move to Toronto,
Mm.
right? So it was coming back home, family was here, right?
Yeah.
So those aspects were important.
Mhm.
But then we also did a calculation. We decided, okay, if we move back home, there's no rent, right? So that's a big savings, and so on and so on. So then you redo your calculation and you figure it out.
Yeah.
Now the only thing I have to say is moving back, there was two things.
Mm.
One, we moved back just as the pandemic started, right?
Yep. Yeah,
which was
crazy.
not a bad thing because we kind
Well,
of learned.
It
Yeah.
was actually good because I
Mhm.
would have been super worried if I was stuck in Vancouver
Absolutely.
during,
Same.
I guess, the lockdown, and then
Yeah.
my family was all over here.
Absolutely. My family would have been panicking too.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm still pretty convinced that I got COVID while I was in Vancouver. I was patient like 12 or something. Yeah.
The super spreader. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hugging everybody. No, I'm just kidding. But once we got here and we were working from home, that was also another big factor to stay at this place,
Yeah.
in my opinion,
Mm.
because the studio was very far from where I live. It was about 2 hour commute or an hour and a half commute or an hour driving, right? And
Yeah.
so I had to make a decision. When I first applied for the job, I did the calculation. I said, you know what? An hour and a half commute, I can do it. I can do it. I used to do it when I was younger. I can do it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Right? But then working from home, you realize I am so much more efficient.
Time is so, like, you actually
Yeah.
have so much extra time.
Exactly.
And it's efficient.
Oh,
See,
so
actually,
much more efficient. Yeah.
there's one thing I do want to
Yeah.
talk about than the work from home, because I know currently there are a lot of voices in the industry for like going back to the studio.
Yes.
Personally, I don't like it,
I
and
don't
I
like
know
it
a
either.
lot of other people doesn't like it either.
Yeah.
And it's just because, yes, during the pandemic, we have all experienced work from home.
Yeah.
It's doable, and it
Yeah.
also gives you so much more flexibility in your time
Absolutely.
without having
Yeah.
to waste it commuting.
Yeah.
And it's just better for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And it's really funny because we have talked to other friends who are like for going back to the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, I have met some of my coworkers currently. It still goes to the studio every day.
Yeah.
For like equipment wise, or like when they say, oh yeah, you know, there's too many people at home, I can't stand it, I just want to go to the studio to work.
Yeah.
That I understand. But also, it's like people who think they can actually revert back to the 5-day in office times.
Yeah.
I just find it really funny because it's like the analogy I always use, right? You have cars now. Like, who wants to go back to like horse carriages, right?
Exactly.
Like, you just can't.
Yeah.
Because you have cars now, it's just gonna go like there's be more cars. You can't, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're like a horse carriage, it's just not gonna go back that way.
It's so much more efficient and so much more slower. Don't you want to do that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, really? Like, oh yeah, just because, you know, we were doing it before, that means like we could do it now. And it's just like, no, but if you found a better way, you'll keep the better way.
Absolutely.
Like, who would go backwards, right? You can you use stove now to cook. You don't go back to use fire just because we've been using it before, right? It's
Can
just,
you imagine?
I know, but it's like it's so weird, the argument sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I just find that people
To
are
me,
using for this.
I don't know. I'm probably going to offend people when I say this. It's a failure of management to even think that to force people back to the office.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think they have a misunderstanding of trust. They have a misunderstanding of what productivity really is.
Yeah.
And it just shows pure management skills.
Yeah.
And you know, I found the best way to motivate people, get people to even work from home, like really make sure they're delivering their product, is actually creating a teamwork atmosphere.
Yeah.
What I mean to say is like not actually just everybody working on each other's work. No, not like that. It's like, you know, we talked about this Jira sprints, right? Is a perfect example. If me, you, 2 other people are doing these sprints every other week, we are almost indirectly in a healthy competition against each other. Right? Where I'm seeing, oh, you're doing, oh my God, you finished your tasks already. Okay, let me quickly try to finish my tasks. Right? I need help. Can someone support me for my tasks? Right? It builds a really good teamwork atmosphere.
Yeah.
But what I find is bad managers don't think about it like that. They just want to see the body sitting in the office, pressing the buttons, and they could be surfing the net, watching YouTube. They just don't care. They just want to see the body in the office.
Yeah, which is so unintuitive, or like it just works backwards to me. I've also seen people at the studio just spending a lot of time talking and actually not doing work.
Yeah,
so how
absolutely.
do you count that, right? And you know, I understand a lot of them. The argument was also like, oh yeah, we want like a studio culture, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, fine, you can have studio days, but make sure you actually have events for it, right? What's the point of having everyone still talking on Teams in a meeting at the studio
Exactly.
with headphones, right?
Yeah.
It's very hilarious to me. And also like, hey, if you're gonna have studio days, why
Yeah.
don't you put all your syncs, all your sync up meetings, all your scrum meetings, whatever
Yep.
meetings you call it within your team,
Yeah.
all on that day, so you actually talk face to face in a meeting with your
Yeah.
teammates, with other departments.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense to me when they don't even enforce that, but they're like, yeah, you have to be at the studio on this day.
Yeah. You know, and the force coming back, I think I read somewhere that it's a way to also cull people from the
Mm,
studio, which is sad to say. It's their way of making people quit,
yeah.
essentially. And I'll be
Hmm.
honest with you, that's one of the reasons I left my last job, because the commute, because the drive, because I decided to drive, it
Yeah.
was costing me close to
Yeah.
200 a month
Yeah.
extra,
Yeah.
400 if I wasn't carpooling.
Yeah.
And what was happening was I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
My sleep was really bad. The drive commute was exhausting.
Hmm.
Um, because you're looking at an hour sitting in
Yeah.
traffic, sitting there,
Yep.
having like you
Road
were,
rage.
road rage, 100% stress levels.
Yeah.
My eating habit became bad. You get home, you're really tired. You don't want to work out.
You don't want to do anything.
Yep, yep, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same like in my situation
Mm-hmm.
currently, it's that commute takes an hour and a half
Yeah,
each way. But on top of that, I still need to make up the hours because
yeah,
I'm trying to avoid traffic to go in,
yeah,
and I also in order to make my last train and not have to take 2 hours to go home,
yeah,
I have to leave a little bit earlier. So I still
yeah,
have to make up an hour and a half, even
yeah,
though it takes 3 hours for me to commute that day. And
yeah.
it's just ridiculous. Like to me, it's like this is more hassle than actually working, you know?
Absolutely. And if a studio doesn't care about that,
Yeah,
it tells you everything you need to know about that place.
exactly.
You know?
And it doesn't help because I guess this might be a situation of Canada
Mm-hmm.
itself
Yeah.
because it's so expensive to live in the city now. A
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people
It's
moved
crazy.
out to the
Yep.
remote areas, and remote areas means an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Oh,
three
sometimes three,
hours.
4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, to get to where they want, like to get to the
Yeah.
studio. I've actually heard from someone in my current studio. It's like it takes them 3 transfers
Yeah.
to commute basically.
Oof, my God.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I'll
Yeah.
be like, yeah, I'm done. I'm good.
And you know how you end up with that whole, like, when people say how the studio goes, oh, this is the radius.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
anybody with this radius has to come in.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, how did you come up with that radius? And I know
Yeah.
exactly how they came up with that radius. They basically pinned all the employees on a map
Hmm.
and then just expanded the radius until they were able to get majority of the people.
I think so too.
And
Yeah.
that's how I mean,
It's so random.
it's so random. Exactly. I'm just like, how did you get someone living 2 hours away that it was okay for them to drive in?
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
drive I'm talking about, 2 hours away driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
And they
That's
expected people
crazy.
doing storms, like
That's true.
snowstorms.
So
I'm just
this
like,
is one of
really?
my other
Yeah.
pet peeve as well,
Yeah.
right? Work from home, the definition
Yeah.
of work from home, and in general, why people want it is for flexibility of when things happen,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
If it's bad weather,
Yeah.
if it's too cold, if there's a lot of snow, if you're sick,
Yeah.
then you should be working from home. Like,
Yeah.
but now because they wanted to make people to go into the studio mandatory
Yeah.
on certain days, it's like, oh, for some reason, yeah, that doesn't count. And it's like, no, I should still be able to say, there's too much snow or it's too
Yeah.
cold, I'm not going in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, my current work, my new work, I have to give them credit. They said it's up to me whether I want to come in or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually enjoying going in
Yeah.
because they've made it very, very fun to come in, you could say.
Well,
Right?
here's the thing about
Yeah.
humans, right?
Yeah.
If you force them, they don't want to do it.
It's true. I think that's what it is.
If you actually give them enough freedom.
Yes. I think the fact that they've given me a choice, it's
Yeah.
my choice.
Mhm.
I'm actually already contemplating that maybe 4 days a week is not a bad idea.
Ah, okay. Wow.
But that's the thing. because it's my choice.
Yep.
And what ends up happening is there's going to be weeks where I do go in like 3-4 days.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be some weeks where, you know what, I can't go any of the days.
Yeah, exactly.
Like during the summer, you know what, I'd rather work from home 3 days a week, right? This way, because I know after work, I need to do a bunch of stuff for the house.
Yeah, you can do your yard work.
Exactly.
You know, and everything. And
Yep.
I mean, that flexibility is the whole point of work from home.
Exactly.
So personally, I think that should be there.
Yeah.
But the way they've done it right now is just not possible. So it's kind of stupid to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know, this goes back to the move scenario. You need to make sure you discuss this when you're doing the interview process.
Yep.
It's like, what are your work from home policies? And, you know, now in retrospect, get all that in writing. Get it all in writing. True. Because I'm finding that a lot of studios just don't care. And they're just like, you have no choice. You have to come in.
Yeah, I think during pandemic, they say anything just to get their hires.
Correct.
But now it's like backtracking on what they're saying. Yeah,
it's really dirty tricks I'm finding some of these studios are playing.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It is unfortunate because, you know, I thought our industry was advanced enough to stop playing these kind of games. But you as an employee have to really think about these things. And really, you know, get a record of these things just to make sure you're covered, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, like you mentioned, make sure you go to a place that has other opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because I'll be honest with you, my previous job, like for 1 year, 2 years, it was fine. I actually enjoyed it. It was only when I found that I felt that the management was kind of, I want to say almost became like aggressive. Is when I was like, okay, you know what? I don't need to be in this abusive relationship.
I guess like a honeymoon period is usually the first 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
But after that, you see way more of the stuff in the cracks. Yeah. How management is, how there's different parties in the studio. And all the politics. Yeah, which is like, that's when you're like, oh, that's too much.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely another topic about like navigating the politics in the studios. But we can talk about that next time. I think with this one, it's, you know, I think we're getting close to the end here. But just to add almost like a conclusion to it, is you have to do your research, your homework.
Yeah,
the health of the studio, you know.
Where you're going. Actually, we do have a friend, coworker, who actually ended up moving to UK, selling their property. Yeah. And then moving. That was big. Then like it was like a year later they moved back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me actually.
Yeah.
I think it's Japanese people when they go to France, Paris for the first time, they get something called Paris syndrome, where because they're obsessed with French cuisine, French food, you name it, right? So when they go to France for the first time and they see what they love, they go into shock almost, and they go into a panic mode and they run to the embassy, heartbroken or crying, even panic attack kind of thing. And it's a real thing. You know,
like,
and I think
it's not as how I imagined. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think to me, if you're ever thinking about going to LA, going to UK, going to any of these places, book a 1 week vacation there.
Yeah. I was about to say that same thing. You know? Yeah. Actually, you mentioning Japan is a funny thing too, right? You know, a lot of us, the reason why we got into this industry is because we love manga, we love anime so much, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna be like, you know, I'm gonna be animating for it, I'm gonna be like drawing my own manga, and then you know, during school, that's when you know it's like, oh, they don't get paid very well, do they? It's like dirt cheap work, and you know, it's like, they don't get treated very well, so it's like, oh, I guess I'm not moving to Japan or being an animator there at all, because it doesn't pay well. You can't
Even,
afford
well,
it.
if you remember, even just last month, we were looking at video game studios in Japan and seeing
Ah,
how much they
yes.
pay.
Yeah.
And we're like, hold on, they paid that much? That's it? It's like, it was like, I think, what was it? Max highest pay was like 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, to move all the way to Japan,
Yeah.
to live in a small, tiny apartment, I
Yeah.
was like, maybe the living expenses balances out, but you can't save for anything then, you
Yeah,
know.
that's true. Yeah.
Oh, one important thing I totally almost forgot as part of your calculations,
Mm.
very important,
Mm-hmm.
is to figure out how much can you save.
Yeah.
Because our industry does not have any form of retirement savings, like
Pensions.
pension. Thank you. We don't have any form of pension in our industry. So it's very important to save a portion of your pay towards whether you're going to save it in RRSPs, tax-free accounts, whatever it is to make sure you have something for retirement.
Yeah.
It's very important.
I'm actually surprised when I talk to
Mm-hmm.
some other coworkers. Some of them even don't take the advantage. Say if their studio is RRSP matching
Yeah,
certain
it's
percentage,
crazy.
they
I was
don't.
shocked when I
Yeah,
heard
I was
when
shocked
I learned
too.
about that.
I
Yeah.
mean, other than the fact, like, say, if you really can't afford even putting
Yeah.
in RSP, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But, like, if you can, then you should always take advantage. But yeah, this one thing studios should do is have more incentives or, like, have more knowledge meetings about financial stuff for their employees, basically. I feel like a lot of us, because this is a job of, like, your dreams and everything, it's you just kind of don't think about the money part.
Yeah. Actually, that reminded me of our last studio that we were in Vancouver. They actually had a special seminar with a financial advisor.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. That was like eye-opening. And I was like, hold on, I'm like 35 and I just found out what how to do my taxes properly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm too old I should have learned this very early on.
Yeah, I think that's important. They don't even teach you in school. Like,
No.
It should have been something that they started in high school, even.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are important factors to calculate, figure out before any of these kind of moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot stress how much savings is important.
Yeah.
And you can see in our current state that our industry is in, I know a few friends that unfortunately have not been able to get a job for like half a year now.
Yeah.
And they're extremely talented. I've been trying to help them out, but there's so much you can do, right?
I think there's two sides, right? One side is if you are looking to go to another place to work, make sure you do all the calculations. But the other side is if there really isn't anything where you live, you should look outside. Like, you can't sit here forever, right? That's the sad part.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, like we were looking at a few other places outside of our current, I guess, Toronto. Mm-hmm. Just in general. Like, I look every year because to me it's important to know what the industry is looking for regardless. Mm-hmm. I even remember the first time we applied to gaming. About a year in, we applied to a VFX house who was working on animation movies. Mm-hmm. And we decided, you know what, let's see what our worth is as character effects artists still. Yeah. Right? And I'll be honest with you, I was very happy with the pay, but what I wasn't happy with the hours, and I wasn't happy with the vacation. Yeah. And that kind of was like, I was like, with those calculations, it didn't make sense because our current job was 9 to 5, right? Yeah. That job was asking for 9 to 6. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if you add the extra hour into your hourly wage, let's say, right? Yeah. It didn't justify the pay they were going to give you.
Yeah, exactly. You need to do that math. It's like 5 hours times however much per hour, and then times like per month, and then what they were actually offering you.
And then you also have to calculate your vacation days, your paid vacation days. Yep. So you figure out exactly what the value of that is. Yeah. And then you can add that to, based on that, you can decide, okay, how much am I going to negotiate? Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Or willing to move to another studio. And then if you decide, oh, looks like, no, I have this many vacations. And then you can also negotiate, be like, okay, if you can't pay me this, can you give me another week of vacation?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then that's the math you're going with.
Yeah.
So
you can also
that's
ask for alternatives. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the art of negotiating, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
getting it right. Because then if someone says, why do you think you deserve this? You can actually be like, well, I did some math and this is what I calculated out.
Yeah.
You know, and then don't get me wrong, in my opinion, you add a percentage for your skills, what you're worth.
Yeah.
Which is very important. Don't undersell yourself, because I think personally I've undersold myself a little too long.
Yeah.
And now I finally said, no, you know what? I bring a lot to the table. I need to not undersell myself.
Well, I think one thing that people need to keep in mind is that whatever value you're giving yourself right now, you're going to have to work up from that value. Like, it doesn't just jump for you. It's really hard. So you might as well start up high, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, should we end it there?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was a good topic. I think next one we could talk about, maybe. Actually, we'll discuss that next week.
Okay. Right. Yeah, it was a good chat today. See you guys next time.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in to Pixelated, eh? Hope you walked away with something new. Don't forget to follow. Until next time, keep it in play and power up for what's next.